Hello, hello. I have to unmute you. Just check.
Sorry, I was muted.
I think you come in. Wow, wow. What's been happening?
So much this week. Close the door. Just trying to settle in. Got a night doctor's appointment so I can see, so I get my contacts. Renegades settled in. Let's see, just kind of status quo right now. Just
Did you start your job?
trying to enjoy. No, I'm still waiting on the background.
Oh.
So I was checking. So this week has just been kind of taking care of business. Canceling the old internet at the old house. Trying to get everything kind of put away here. Getting all so I had to have 2 sets of fingerprints. 1 set is complete. The other set is still pending. So I don't know what's taking so long, but I'm hoping that Monday, kind of got to get to work. But I'm grateful for the time. Really, it's been it's kind of a blessing just to be here.
Yeah, a whole week to recalibrate, and that's fantastic.
It's nice. I mean, I'm a little nervous about it taking so long, but it is the FBI background and Department of Justice, so I don't know. It says pending, but one of them is completed. That one went straight to the board, but I just keep praying and praying and praying, and although they need me to get there, and I'd feel a lot better if I was actually already starting the job. Like, okay, but it can't be anything. There is. I didn't get in any trouble, so it's like, what could it possibly there be from the last 3 years?
Yeah.
But I just really just using the tools and not getting anxious about it, and just
resting,
just breathing.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of Lana Vorza, Lisa. Have you heard of this lady? She's a prophetic woman, very, very powerful. And she recently, I'm just seeing if I can find it. Her latest word in just the last few days is all about rest.
Really?
That this is a time, that this moment is time for rest. I'll just see if this is it.
Today I heard the Lord say.
And if it is, I'll send you the link.
Okay.
It was just beautiful. It was so powerful and so relevant about the refreshment. Rest. Yes, this is it. Would you like me to send it to you?
Yes, that would be awesome.
I'll send it to your messenger.
What?
I'll send it to your messenger.
Please. That's kind of that I was talking with so the people on this house, they're a couple. They have 2 grown kids and they have a teenager, and they have a little dog. His name is Jake. And so then they rented out another room to a couple who are in a transition kind of thing. And the other day I spent some time with the lady. Her name's Robin, and they're all believers in the house. And it's just amazing how these people have opened their house. And, even the first week, Xavier is the man's name. And he's like, we're all family now. So, we just treat each other like we're family. That's what we're going to do. We'll adjust, the dog, I was like, cause I was still like, like hyper vigilant on it. And it's amazing the peace that's here. Cause before I was not able to sleep for more than a few hours at a time.
Wow.
Now I can sleep for 10 hours straight. But,
That's
to
just
the other, like, there's a lot of change. Like, they're really, it's just amazing how it's kind of like the touch of the master's hand. I was telling Robin earlier that, it's so enjoyable to walk out there. And although I have stuff I have to get done and all this training, just to take that time and visit and rest with, and just be present, without agenda or, and we went to the store the other day together. Her battery had died. Her husband was at work. And I said, come with me if you don't mind my dirty car. I do need to wash it. So we named the car Ruby. And we went and we did a few errands together, and we laughed, and actually somebody hit my car, but I had gone into the gas station to get us a couple sodas from the fountain thing. Well, I walked in and the fountain machine was broke. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not driving down the road. I'm just going to get, the bottled. And so I paid for it. California is very expensive. So I was like walking back to the car, and I opened the door and she's like, they got you. I said, yeah, they did. I had to pay for the bottle because the fountain was broke. She's like, no, they hit you. And I'm like, who hit me? It was just a couple of young kids in their, what I think was their mother's truck. They didn't damage my car. And I was like, let me make sure it starts and, everything works. And I was like, don't be hitting this car, boy. She's going to be worth something in a couple of years, I said, be careful hitting Ruby. She just might come back and get you. They looked at, but we laughed so hard because, I thought she was talking about, the gouging for the price of the soda. And then I realized she's trying to tell me that the car got hit. And I'm like, what?
Interesting.
It was just funny that I found it funny. And I wasn't too sure what she was thinking I was going to think, but I was like, no harm. We're good. Glad there was nothing harmed.
Yeah.
And that she wasn't harmed. And that we giggled the whole way home. And it was just something so silly that, could have really ruined somebody's day.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Just kind of laughed about it. And we had just,
cool.
we went through the car wash and we blew out all the dog hair. And she's like, your car needs a name. And I'm like, does it now? I was like, maybe so. And so it's, and it's a cougar. And I was like, how about Ruby? So we named her Ruby. I was like, it's a gemstone,
Yeah. Wow. How good is God?
Just something, so simple, not, it just was very simple, but so enjoyable. And I haven't really had that for a long time. And just, my heart is like so joyful and so just giving right now, that it's just amazing. It's beautiful. I'm like so emotional, but I'm not emotional sad. It's beautiful. And
yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Well, I'm really
but
so encouraged. It's just such it thrills my heart to hear how God is working for you, Lisa. Really, truly. I'm just going to send this link to a girl who is asking, and then we'll get started. Let me see. I did tell her I would do this, so I better not.
I'm not sure that I copied the link you sent me for your next thing. I did have a little trouble with the internet and my phone, off and on. I don't know if it was the wind or what, but or if my phone was searching for something in Alabama. It should have been searching for something in California. But I don't know if I actually copied it to my friend Barb. She hasn't responded yet. So
Sure. I'm just about ready to send a coupon for you if you want to jump into the workshop that I'm going to start, which will probably be next week. So
okay, then my mistake. I thought you'd already sent it. Okay, gotcha.
yeah, maybe I haven't, because I want to set up all the connections so that I don't have to be chasing my tail.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So I've had some really interesting, like, challenges, things that come up that are out of my control. And the guy that usually helps me, he's normally straight on the day he's able to help, but he's actually traveling today and won't be back till next week. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I just be patient, Lord. This is your timing. I can't force things that aren't that are out of my control. So nearly there, which is exciting.
I'm excited to see them then. I don't feel so bad because I think I sent her the link for this stuff then. No wonder why she. But,
oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Well,
I'll
do going forward in a little while, but yeah, let's get started. There we go. Someone else to let in the room.
Hey.
This is Beck. Looking about 21 in her picture there. Amazing. That's an amazing photo. All right, well, I will get started. There she is. Hello. I'm going to get started, Beck, so I'll just quickly introduce, and then I'll share what I want to talk about and get you girls' thoughts about that. Welcome. This is very exciting to me. This is the 10th workshop in a series of 10. It was in my heart to run this series of free workshops to, I guess, really connect with some new people and also express what my heart is. So I'm Miriam Smout, and my alter ego, or my other name that I run by, is Redemption Mamas. If that's the name of the business, well, it's not really a business, it's more a ministry. Let's forget the business side. But Redemption Mamas is something that was on my heart for quite some years, because I'm a mama of 5. I'm a daughter with 5 siblings. I'm a grandmother. There's so much that goes on in life when you are a woman. It doesn't matter what stage of life you're at, whether you're a mother or you have a mother or you don't have a mother or you've fallen out with your mother. All of these are just the life experiences that we have. And I have to say, I've been through all of those. I had a broken relationship with my mum for many years. And sadly, today I have a broken relationship with a couple of my daughters, which is how Beck and I met. Beck runs a beautiful group called Mothers of Estranged Daughters. And these are the sorts of things that are just being raised up, to support us. And this is one more piece in the jigsaw puzzle that I want to offer. So my passion is to help women heal. Battle-weary women, I like to say, battle-weary women. If anyone's been in the fight of life and you feel a bit weary from the battle, then this is the place for you. I love to help battle-weary women heal deep wounds, reclaim their personal power, and unlock the God-given destiny. I'm faith-based, and I love to do what I do out of intuitive teaching and spirit-led healing. And so that's my heart, and that's where I'm coming from. Now, with what I've been doing over these last 10 weeks, I've been wanting to share my beliefs, like my paradigms, where I'm coming from, where it springs out of. And so I've been talking about living in alignment, which is that body, soul, spirit thing. I've been talking about pushing through resistance, which is what seems to always come up. And just the moment before a breakthrough, I don't know if you can resonate with this, but just before you get to the top of that mountain peak and you see the light at the end of the tunnel, it is amazing how much resistance comes against you. And for me, at times, that resistance has been pretty intense. So that is part of what I am very passionate about, like really helping others to push through. And I believe that's something that we need to do in community, which is why I've joined Beck's group, because there's a group of women together. We're really cheering each other on. And I want to talk a little bit about this whole concept of community and accountability today. The other place that I come from is this emotional heart healing place. There are psychologists, therapists, counselors. There's many people that you can access today that help with the cognitive, the mental, that mental health area. We've got millions of different modalities that help with the physical side, you know, the body stuff. But there's not a lot of places that you get help with the emotional. And that's where, for me, I found there was a gap in my own life. I had done counselling. I had been through working with psychologists. And while that helped and definitely took me to a place where I wasn't as undone as I had been, what I did find was that something was missing. There was this piece that was missing, and I didn't kind of connect for a while. But as I worked through the stuff on my own side, I started to see it was that emotional piece. How do I deal with these messy emotions? How do I deal with wanting to either erupt like a volcano or hide in my bedroom under my pillow and cry and not let anyone know what I was feeling or what was going on for me? We just had a big storm come over, so I've got this darkness on one side and this brightness on the other. It's really interesting. So anyway, going on, for me, that emotional piece became a piece to bring healing into, and I saw it as wounds on my heart, like black spots that kind of land, and you get hurt, people hurt you, you do things that you regret, all of these things you carry, and they become heart issues. And out of those heart issues, we start to find we get that cycle of thinking, ruminating thoughts that are toxic, that are not helpful, and then we feel bad, and it's just a spiral, you know, that can take you down and down and down. So for me, I was very keen to understand and unpack this emotional piece. And as I started to unpack this emotional piece, it became very evident to me that it was attached to memories, things from my past that I'd not actually processed, that I hadn't actually healed. And so for me, you know, I had a broken relationship with my mother, for instance, and now it was a rinse and repeat cycle in my life with my daughters. It's like, never expected that. Thought that I had worked so hard at making sure that cycle didn't repeat, and yet here it was repeating. Now, for me, when there's a cycle or a pattern, that's like an alarm bell. Clang, clang, clang. Something needs some attention. And it's now I know it's back in my memories, back in the past piece, back in the time where, you know, I'm so far removed, decades and decades removed from that broken piece. And so it can be hard to connect the dots because I'm living my life today in this moment, but that 20, 30, 40 year ago experience that didn't get the healing is still having an impact. It's still having its, you know, claws or its grip over my emotions, my thinking, and my actions. So the whole process that I've been on has been, for me, framed up by the 5 steps. 5 steps in hindsight that I could see I'd been walking through these 5 steps. And each time I would go through those 5 steps, I would come to a place that gave me more grounding. And I noticed that if I didn't go through each of those steps, that then missing a piece of it would mean I'd have to go back and kind of go through that again. And interestingly, it's not that you can put a time frame on this, that it's a week here and then a week there and then a week here. It's very much very personal, very unique to every single individual. And so the process becomes one that is so personal, so unique to each of us, that when we are talking with others about a journey like this, we can often find that we're not understood, because people have their opinions and they have their insights and their experience that maybe they have wanted to overlay onto you. And I found that for me. So particularly when I was journeying through the time with my daughters, and interestingly, this was our conversation just today in Beck's group, that people can tell you what they think you should do. They can tell you what they think you should have done, or maybe what it is that you're dealing with. Now, my heart is that I want to find a place, and I feel I have in Beck's group particularly, that actually can validate and can celebrate my journey. It doesn't have to look like yours. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Because what I've experienced with the women that I've worked with now, hundreds of women, is that it's never been the same way twice. Yes, there might be some snippets of like familiarity, and that's where the 5 steps, often I can see where that person's at through those 5 steps. But to actually say, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to do it, if you don't do this, you won't. I learned all of those that verbiage comes back to not celebrating the individual and celebrating the uniqueness of that person's journey. And so some girls I've worked with, honestly, it's been a slow, laborious process. And sometimes I've thought, how much longer before this person gets it? But then I was reminded numerous times when I had that sort of response. Actually, there were some times, I was very stuck. And my friends must have been thinking the same thing about me. You know, when the heck is she going to get over this? When is she going to move forward? So I want to talk today about the last step, which is consistency in my 5-step process. So the 5-step process, I haven't got my ebook up and ready to share today, but I think I should just grab that quickly. The 5-step process, it's not like this is set in concrete. It's not like this is law or anything ridiculous like that. This 5-step process for me has been very much just a, how would I say, a process of going back and seeing that, in fact, there's been a process. A lot of the time, it didn't feel much like a process. It truly, truly did feel like more of a disaster on a pretty consistent basis. But I'll just quickly walk you through these, just try to configure everything here. So this is an ebook that I put together, and I'll share the link to this in the description when we're finished. And I call it the 5 steps to emotional healing. Now, these are not the only 5 steps, and I'm sure it's not the only way, but it's definitely for me been the process that I've used. So it started for me in my 40s when I call it the unraveling, and I hit a wall. I had been able to hold things together, but then this experience, which I call the unraveling, happened. For me, I did psychology, I did counselling, I did a few different things that, as I mentioned, you know, while that was supportive, it didn't give me that empowerment that I was really looking for. And my sister actually said to me, the trouble with you, Miriam, is you're not willing to settle for the status quo. And I thought about that, and I thought that's absolutely true. What would the status quo be here? And I felt the status quo would be compromising with mediocre. And yes, I wasn't happy to settle for that. And so I've been able to work with women now for well, 15 plus years in different ways, in through working with women in drug addiction, women in domestic violence. So some of those really desperate situations. And then recently, women that maybe aren't so destitute as that, but still very broken on the inside. And that was me. I wasn't destitute, but I was broken on the inside. And what I started to see for me was there was this gap. There was a gap between where I was and where I wanted to be. And I guess my sister was identifying that and saying, well, just be happy, you know, to live in the gap. But I can't fully explain it in words of one syllable in a lot of ways. But the gap was so painful, and it just sort of scratched around on the inside of me to such an extent that I couldn't live there. I didn't want to stay there. So bridging the gap became, I guess, the heart and the passion of what I was doing. So out of that came these 5 steps. And initially I called them the 5 steps to a beautiful you, because we were talking again about this. Gosh, Beck, our time earlier today is really aligned with what's coming out for me. And I did think that in our session, actually. I discovered that what had been happening for me was starting to frame up this lie that I was believing, and it was that I wasn't beautiful. I was an ugly person. I was not a good person. How did these bad things happen to a good person? If this bad stuff's happening to you, then that makes you pretty ugly. And so our life experiences, and for me it was definitely my life experiences, were reflecting to me that I was not someone to be valued, treasured and loved, someone who had worth and beauty. And that took me into a very dark place for quite some time. And so that's why for me, these 5 steps were my 5 steps to reclaim that truth about me, that I'm imperfect. Yes, I do things wrong. Yes, I make mistakes. Yes, I don't get it. Yes, I miss the point sometimes. But, you know, at the heart of everybody, I believe, is a beautiful, beautiful you. And it's what I believe we all are fighting for, and we all are impassioned to see revealed and expressed to the world around us. So the 5 steps to a beautiful you are what kind of came out of my journey. So the first step is the shape up step, where I had to work through that process of really identifying the things that had shaped me, both the good and the bad. And all of those I found were connected to memories that left an imprint on my life. Actually being able to identify those and to identify the things that had shaped up my life, I found to be a very empowering step. And in doing that, I then started to progress to the next step, which is really identifying out of those memories the challenges that had shaken my life. They're the things that I started to have to be able to name, and I call name and shame. And out of that for me came some sexual abuse that had happened to me as a child. And I'd never connected that that could have ever impacted or influenced or left an imprint on my life. But as I worked through the journey of healing, it stunned me how much of an imprint and how much of an impact it had had. So that's one of the shake-ups that I've worked through in my own life. There have been a lot of shake-ups. The breakdown with my mother, I think I was around 16 when that happened. And then there were many, many years that relationship was incredibly difficult. Now, all of those shake-ups, they're the pieces that I had to acknowledge. I've either tried to suppress and hide because they were just too painful. I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know how to walk myself through it. So I had this choice of just suppressing it, hiding it, skeletons in the closet, shut the door, not go back there. But what I was finding on the other side of that pendulum swing, I was either suppressing or I was like a volcanic eruption. Things would come along and trigger me, and I would have no idea why. And I would erupt like a volcano, you know, spew out all the vomit, spew out all the fiery, yucky stuff that I just honestly didn't know where it was coming from. But as I started to identify those shake-ups and name them and shame them, that became a very empowering process as well. The next process in my steps were what I call step 3, the step up. I started to have to identify ways that I had stepped up and out from my shake-ups. What I found were that some of my default positions, like suppressing or erupting like a volcano, all of those survival skills, they had left me with maybe some strategies that weren't serving me well. When I didn't know how to exchange those survival skills, while they had helped me survive through some shake-ups in my life, I didn't realize I actually had to do an exchange and start to process ways that instead of just operating out of survival, I could actually live my life and do that exchange. And so that exchange from survival skills, which are those default things, those just default ways that we go back to, you know, the anger or the grief or the pain or the not trusting or building up walls. That's a big one for me. I build up walls. That was one of my survival skills. Put another brick in the wall, keep out the next person that might hurt you. However, you know, that particular survival skill works for the survival period, but if it becomes a life skill, it doesn't just keep out the bad stuff, it keeps out the good stuff as well. And that's what I was finding. It was hard to find joy. It was hard to enjoy the good things. And Brené Brown was one of the people that really supported me in getting insight about that. I forget which book it was, but she has a number of books that are so powerful in helping to really connect with what are some of the survival skills that we might be using in our own life. And when they come to a place of not serving us well anymore, it's time to do an exchange. But I needed to find out what they were. So the step up is that part where I start to really unpack what am I doing and what am I doing in the 3 areas of my life, which is my body in the physical, my soul in my emotions and my feelings, and then in the spirit in that life flow, that energy piece that we all need to work from. Now, once I've kind of figured out what I'm actually doing, step 4 became for me like that place of setting it up, the action plan. What am I going to take with me and what am I going to leave behind? And this is not as easy as it sounds, because if you've been building walls for 40 or 50 years and suddenly you decide you're not going to build walls anymore, you can't just make that shift overnight. It's like, yes, that's the plan. That's what I want to do. But then what do I need to do? What are some of my processes going to be so that I can make sure that this doesn't elude me and I just go back to those default survival skills? So setting up the action plan for me, that was a real key to unlock the door, to step out of some of the cycles that I'd found myself in, some of the rinse and repeat cycles particularly. And it helped me to be way more intentional. I had clarity now about the things that were shaping me and had shaken me. Now I needed some intentional strategy to walk myself through those and into that space where no longer living in the gap, but being able to be empowered to live how I wanted to live. So today I just wanted to finish up in this last workshop about consistency. I must say, for me, consistency has actually been, I want to say, the hardest piece. It's been the hardest piece to maintain consistency throughout this journey. The consistency piece, whoops, I've lost it, sorry. Have I lost it? Can you guys still see that? Okay. There it is. I lost it on my computer. Staying consistent. This actually took a whole lot more of a intentional, diligent process. And I'm so grateful for different people that came into my life, that I was able to get some skills and some strategies from so many places. I would be the last person to say I have all the answers. I have a lot of questions. I reckon I've got all the questions, but I know that I don't have all the answers. And so I love being part of groups where I can learn and I can appropriate some of those skills or strategies and give it a try. And some things don't work for me, so I ditch them, but at least I know because I've given it a try. So in the step of consistency, it's finding the things that are going to help you stay consistent. What's going to help you do that on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly process that will help you stay consistent? And look, let's just be honest. I'm not 100% consistent. I'd be happy if I'm more than 50%. I reckon I'm more than 50%, but I'm definitely not at the 100% mark yet. And hats off to anyone that is. And I love seeing people, particularly in the physical way, you know, where they can be so consistent with their exercise, and that's a really big piece in staying healthy and staying that beautiful you. But knowing what's going to help you be consistent isn't the same for every single person. So one of the ways I use to stay consistent is my diary. I'm afraid unless it's in front of my face and I read it, I can argue with myself about doing it. I love swimming. I can swim for an incredible length of time and not feel like I have. So I've found the physical activity that actually isn't hard for me to say yes to. I hate running. I love a few other things, but swimming is it. So in my diary, you know, 3 to 4 times a week is a message that comes up, swimming. And if I want to argue with that, I know now I've got to justify it to myself. I've got to justify why I've decided I don't have time, why I've decided something else is more important, and sometimes something else is, and that's okay. But that's for me one of the ways of staying consistent. Another is journaling, and having a journal that becomes dated, and I can go back and see, well, when was the last time I wrote in my journal? Because I can often see a pattern between a week of not doing that and my emotional or my thought life, health. I might notice, oh, there's a bit of a decline here. And look at this, I haven't done this for 10 days, 2 weeks. So I do that with my gratitude journal. I do it with my own journal, just dating things. It's a little bit of an accountability process, like, you actually haven't done that for 10 days. So that could explain why you're starting to have lost that consistency, or that stability, or that grounding emotionally. Now, I'm sure there's lots of other ways to do it. I do some nutty things, and I have little, I don't know if you have the white ink pens that you can erase your mistakes with. I love to grab them and write on my mirrors, little reminders to myself. They don't get washed off when I clean. They actually end up staying there. Little reminders about what I'm maybe trying to achieve or accomplish or shift in my own emotional heart health. I love little post-it notes that I stick around different places. One place is above my kitchen sink. Unfortunately, where we are now, it's a window and they tend to fall down because of the heat or the cold. But in my previous house, I had some spots where that was a really good thing to do for me, above the kitchen sink. The bathroom is another place. I am consistent with brushing my teeth. So, you know, when I get back to the bathroom and I've got a reminder there, whether it's a note on the mirror or it's a note on the toothpaste, I don't know. I just need reminders to be consistent. I just find that I wake up in the morning and I cannot believe that I can actually waste so much time sometimes. And there goes my time for me, my quiet time, my journaling. It's like, how did that happen? So consistency is definitely something that I'm learning to get better at. And I don't think it'll ever be something that I nail without needing support. And so where I wanted to go today is the next piece, which is not a step in my 5-step process, but it is something that framed up the process for me right throughout, and that's accountability. I have struggled in the years over my life to sometimes find people that I feel safe to be accountable with. Finding an accountability group or buddy, it's not an easy thing. And if it's something you've struggled with, then please don't think you're the only one. Finding accountability groups that help you to stay grounded, consistent, growing, facing the pain and the wounds that need healing, it's not an easy thing to find. I'm honouring Beck today because we just had such a lovely session, but Beck runs a group for mothers of estranged daughters, and this is a safe place. It's not easy to find a safe place, but a safe place where you can go and you can share and you can actually really open your heart and be honest and real and authentic, and find that place where people love you for who you are, embrace you for who you are, but will encourage you, will cheer you on, won't criticize and judge you, but will say, hey, how can we stand along with you? How can we help you be accountable to growing? How can we help you to be accountable to changing? How can we help you to be accountable to being consistent? And that's not coming out of them asking you the question. I think it comes out of us asking the question of the people we're with. This is what I need. This is what I'm looking for. So accountability wove its way through each of these steps. And for me, it was through having a mentor. I had a couple of women. It started for about 3 of us who were not willing to live in the gap and be happy with that status quo. And we seemed to have just found each other, and we were able to continue to support each other. And there were many times I wanted to spit the dummy in. This is too hard, I'm out of here. And these girls would say to me, no, you've done too much work. You are not leaving now. You know, we're going to stalk you. We're going to haunt you. We're going to be after you. And that was what I needed so many times, to just have those people that loved me and said, you know, actually, we've seen the work you've done, and you are not going to waste those weeks and months and years that you've invested in this process. We're going to stand by you. What can we do to help you? How can we support you? And sometimes it's as simple as, you know, just a heart text. Sometimes I had a meal dropped on my doorstep. Sometimes I was invited out for a coffee. Sometimes they just rang me at random moments saying, I'm thinking of you. Are you okay? And often I wasn't. So, you know, the tears would flow. To be in a place where you feel safe to do that, that's not a common place I've found in my life. So if you find one, it's to be treasured and it's to be taken hold of. And staying accountable through the process, I just want to say that I could not be where I am today if I'd had to do this journey on my own. There is no way I could have done this on my own, because there were so many times I was on the verge of giving up. There were so many times I was about to bail, and had it not been for just those moments of my friends in their intuition, or even random people, or just things that came across my path in that moment that were enough to encourage me and keep me going, I needed accountability. And so even today, I have a mentor who I know when I go to her, she's not going to just go, poor Miriam, love you, love you, love you. She is going to say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you considered that? Do you think that you've really forgiven this person? That was just yesterday, or was it the other day we met? We meet about once a month. And she said, are you daily forgiving that person? I was like, oh, actually, maybe that's my issue right now. So, but I trust her. I know that what she says to me will be out of love for me and who I am. That takes time, and it takes relationship, and it takes consistency in the process of staying in relationship with people, and staying in relationship and connected to places where we will feel supported. So I just feel really strongly there's the workshop that I'm starting very soon, which is a paid for workshop, and it's going to help people work through those steps, and those links are coming available. But I feel that this time I want to set aside to be a free hour session where community can start to develop and grow. And it's not about necessarily what I have to bring, but it's rather about a time where accountability and consistency can find a space, a safe place to operate. Because I just see them walking hand in hand. I can't be consistent if I'm not accountable. I can't be growing and moving forward if there's not someone there that's going to be cheering me on. And you might have that person in your life. Sometimes our partners, husbands can be those people, but sometimes they can't. Sometimes they're not the best person. Sometimes they don't fully understand what we're going through. So finding a place where that accountability can really support us to help us bridge that gap. This is what I'm wanting. So I feel going forward, I want to just open up this hour for anyone, so that if there's somebody who can't necessarily access a paid for thing, they can. There's no excuse. There's no excuse to say, I don't have the money, or I don't have the time, or there is a place that you can come that is open and available for that consistency piece, and for that accountability piece as well. So I will be putting links, and I'll continue to post in the Facebook group reminders about the Friday morning. I'll keep it at the 8:30 because I joined back at 7 to 8. And so it gives me that half an hour space to then come in and do this. And I'm not going to give up that 7 to 8 space. Thank you very much. Because it's become so meaningful and so supportive and encouraging for me. It's like when you find something that you feel feeds you, and you go away, and days later that edifying thing is still flowing and it's still nurturing you. Don't ever give that up. So for me, this time will stay 8:30 my time in the morning, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time US, and all the other times in the US and all the other times around the world. I'll keep this as a time that is not paid for. It's just a time that anyone can come in and to start to build community, to start to really enable that space to open up, to encourage and be cheerleaders for those of us that need it. And some days I need it, some days I can give it. And that's what this is all about. So, ladies, I would love to hear your thoughts about consistency and accountability. Please unmute yourselves. Share with me your consistency process. Share with me what you do to be accountable, and let's learn and grow from each other.
Well, I think those two things definitely do go together. I never really thought of them together, but it's true. And I do think it takes a tribe. A tribe is what holds me accountable and consistent. It's not just one person. It's whether it be, but it's also picking that tribe carefully. I have different tribes, but there's one tribe in particular that I know that does keep me consistent and grounded and accountable. And if I slip, there's always somebody right there that's going to do just like you said. And I think we all need that. So it's picking our tribe, making sure they know that the people in my tribe know that I need them to help me be consistent and accountable, because I've gone through so many life challenges, and so have they, but just sometimes different challenges. So we need each other for different roles, and I know when they need me and they know when I need them.
Yeah, I love that, Beck. That's so true. And me too, you know, I have a different group of people, say, for the exercise piece, you know, and how come you didn't, where were you yesterday? Or, you know, that's great. But I certainly wouldn't be sharing my heart with them, some of them, because that wouldn't be appropriate. So yeah, I love that you said that. It takes a tribe, not just one person.
Well, this is all new for me. So this is my time, you know, that I know that I can, you know, just be real and as I'm learning. So I do think that is really cool and very much needed. So I know that I set an alarm to remind me, you know, stop what you're doing and go get ready. So it's that important. And so I don't have a tribe yet. So I'm counting on you right now.
Oh, Lisa, that's so beautiful. I love that. That's another thing, isn't it? Alarms, you know, to stay consistent. We use it if we need to wake up at the same time every morning. And yeah, and in our phones now, we've got so much technology that really consistency is not something that we have much of an excuse about. Reminders in phones, you know, they can be a bit irritating, but that's what they're there for, especially if we are procrastinating and we're like, oh, I can't be bothered today. And there's no way of pushing through that procrastinating part if we don't have something that helps us to stay consistent, but then accountable as well. Yeah, well, Lisa, welcome. Really, your story has been so remarkable in the last month.
Yes.
Changes in your life are phenomenal, and you've actually blessed a lot of girls who've reached out to me and said, who's that woman who's been doing all these things with these men, this mean man? And I'm like, yeah, that's Lisa. So, you know, it's incredible to think that your story, even so early on, is impacting and encouraging others.
That's amazing. That's a blessing. Yeah. It's there. I have no words to express that, how happy that makes my heart, and that, you know, that other people can watch. And, you know, let me tell you, I've had my share of potholes, you know, and this time when God calls you, really calls you, you'll know, you'll feel it, you'll hear it, you'll smell it, see it. You will have no defense against it. It's just better sit down and listen, you know. And yeah, it's truly amazing. The it's I'm amazed at everything. I'm amazed at the words that flow easily now out of my mouth, and that I can see something that was so wrong for me, and something that I had to face that I didn't want to. But, you know, God was there, support was there, and I did it. And I tell you what, it felt so good, and it feels so good even now when I get a message from this person that, you know, is no good, really tried to take my life, and still thinks that they can be part of my life. There's no way that you can be part of my life. There's no way God will allow it. And that I'm not such a fool to cower out of trying to meet somebody else's needs and not meet my own. You know, that I matter, and women who battle, like Miriam's, battle weary. You get to the point where you're just so darn tired, you just give up. And then you find yourself back in the same misery. So women helping women, men helping men, communities, you know, this isolation, it doesn't help things. And I'm not just talking about COVID, but isolating yourself because you think that you are not good enough, or that you don't have the ability to handle what's happened to you. You know, when you can actually be peaceful and make a choice to trust that you deserve better and to reach for that, when you get to that point, let me tell you, it is like a rocket. And I feel like like I told you last week, I feel like I feel like God put me on that rocket and it just shot, you know, somewhere way far away. And I'm still trying to catch up to where I'm at. You know? Wow.
Yeah.
How did we get here? You know, and
Well,
it's amazing.
I love that you said without the support, because when you are facing, you know, those sort of, like, that's a 10 out of 10 kind of thing that you've been through, particularly with all that you've had to decide to set boundaries around. And so you can't do that on your own. You know? You just need others that will. And it's not just like Beck said, it's a tribe. It's not just one person. One person is actually tipping into codependency, and that's unhealthy. You know, when we are, I've got to ring this person, I've got to talk to that person. I mean, after a while, they're not going to want to talk to you because it's just too much. You're too needy. But I think as women, we have maybe been a little bit too codependent on each other, which is not, being dependent's not wrong. It's absolutely what you say. We need support. But it's knowing how to walk and navigate through that place where we need support, and being able to do our part. And sometimes when we are in groups, we can get a bit lazy, and we can think, well, if someone else does this for me, that'd be amazing. So that's not going to happen on my watch. But I want to say that when I work with women and I feel that it might be tipping that way, I won't hesitate to say that. And that's not being rude, but I do it in a loving way. And so one of the things I say is, when people want to reach out and get some help from me, I will ask them, what is it you want to help you with? What is it that you're wanting to have me agree with you about? Because then they've done a bit of background stuff. I'm not someone who wants to hear your story vomited out another time. Go to a counsellor for that. There is a need for that. But if it's the 5th or the 10th or the 100th time, that's evidence that there's not been growth. And that's where a lot of people say, I've been to a counsellor, I just tell them my story every week over and over. Well, there's a place for that. But if that's where you're stuck, then you're becoming codependent on that person, because you go away, you feel a little bit better because I'd say vomit. I mean, it's a bit rude, isn't it? But, you know, you spewed it out for another week. You go away, you feel okay. But I did that, and I didn't feel okay about just being okay. And that's the thing that really motivated me to want to pursue something a bit more, which tipped into that emotional piece. So we have, as women, maybe been a little bit codependent, and so we're a bit hesitant. I don't want to hear too much about what's going on for you, partly because I don't want you to depend on me to be listening time and time and time about that. Or sometimes what we're going through is just too much for that person to even contain in their own life. And I've been there sometimes. I've heard some horrendous stories. And sometimes I just almost have to go and have a shower afterwards, you know, to sort of feel like I'm washing all that yucky stuff away, because it is so vile and it is so awful. But these are real life experiences that people are going through. And so helping people that are going through such dark and terrible stuff, and then helping people that, you know, maybe it's not 10 out of 10 stuff, but it's 10 out of 10 to them, right? So we don't want to quantify like this is bad, this is good. What I experience and what I'm journeying through is something that I feel needs to be validated for me, for you, for every person that comes into this space. However, if we get stuck there, then that's when the cheerleading needs to come into play. That's when the support needs, that's when the tribe starts going, can you please get out of that hole? Or can you please find another pathway? That pathway has a hole and you keep falling in the ditch. You know, these are the sorts of things that we want to be able to do for each other. We want to do it in a key way.
Sorry to be interrupted before I forget. So, you know, like I said, like I can, like everything is like so right there for me right now. When, you know, I have all the same issues. I have been the one calling my friends, but, you know, and I'm like, and I had to stop because I don't want to lose my friends. But it wasn't until, you know, yes, that's why counselors, it never worked for me. It wasn't until I had come to a place where, okay, this is where we're at. This is not where I want to be. How do I get past this? And that is when the journey began. And it was God-led because I hadn't really searched for it. So I don't think that this would be healthy for us to just come in here complain. You know, that is not what it's about. Or to keep saying, oh, my, blah, blah, because none of us want to hear that, because we've all lived through it. That's why we're here. You know, we're here to heal. So I think that for a lot of beginners, like if you're really ready to take that very scary leap of faith to grow, then come on, because that's when the real healing starts. And yes, it can be emotional, but it's different. It's a different emotion when you have the guiding and the steps that you can go back then. Okay, so when this time is over, you have provided, or somebody has provided the tools that we can go back and we're all adults, and you either want to grow and you want to move forward and you want it. And like you said, sometimes you're really, really hungry. Sometimes you just have a little appetite, but listen to the other stories. I did. And it really opened a lot of things for me. I can't remember her name now, but when I felt the same thing she did, it just confirms that it is blessed. So I don't want to interrupt you anymore, but that's kind of, I like how you said, counseling doesn't work. We're not here to just, come in and complain about what went wrong that week. It's just, okay, here was my challenge. Now what? Now here's what I did. Okay, well, that didn't work. Now what do I do? What did I miss?
There's always a place for these different modalities, and counselling certainly has its place. And my brother's a counsellor, and he's done some degrees and things in it. But one of the problems in the counselling sphere right now is that they're not actually allowed to offer advice. And so they're allowed to listen, but they're not actually allowed to step in and go, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about that? And so there's a place where we have to get that out, and we have to do that process. We've got to get it out. But then we need to find those tools. We need to find those ways of processing the difficult emotions. And for me, that's where I came to like the end of the road, and I'm like, I'm just rinse and repeat here with this counselling thing. I'm hungry for more. I don't want to just stay in that cycle, feeling like I'm okay, but I'm not. By the end of the week, okay, I'm desperate to get back and repeat it. That's where I wanted to really break that. And the girl you're talking about is Monique, Lisa. And I just want to, I want to just say her father passed away really suddenly the other day. So keep her in your prayers, because that was just a shock, absolute shock for for her and for the family. So if you do think of Monique, please just pray for her at the moment. This was early this last week, so it's only a few days now, but a lot for the family to process and have to work through. So
That is a lot.
yeah, you know, she's already doing such an amazing job working through her own emotional stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, what a dump to have to add that load to the journey. But this is part of the thing of you know, for us to sort of get to know each other and I think to understand some of the rules, unspoken, maybe not so unspoken, but understood, that we don't want codependency to be part of the issue. And I really want to speak into ways I had to learn to identify, is this me just jumping in before I've actually done a bit of my own homework, which means I'm codependent. I'm needing that person to help me and do my work for me. Or is this me actually really needing some support right now? And there's a fine line. It's not like we get it right or wrong all the time. But one thing I really encourage the girls I work with is, you tell me what you've done. You tell me where you're at with your stuff. And then let's move from there. Rather than let's take an hour for you to rehash what we already know. If you're still, I'll share with you how I learned this strategy. We've worked a friend of mine worked together a lot of years doing this, and that's how I ended up growing into a space where I felt confident that I could step out on my own because our life circumstances changed. But I remember we were with this girl and it was week after week. I don't know how many weeks it had been, but we're rehashing the same stuff. She got out a bit of paper and her pen and she wrote a phone number on it. And she passed her a phone number. And I thought, what's going on here? And she said to her, when you're ready to move on, give me a call. Like, oh my gosh, that just blew my mind. But I thought she disrupted something that needed to be disrupted. But at that stage, we didn't have a graceful strategy exit. I promise I won't. Well, if I do that, that would be pretty sad. But we've grown from having to just hand the phone number out and say, call me when you're ready. And the funniest thing was, about 2 years later, this girl did ring and she said, why haven't we spoken for such a long time? And I thought, oh no, don't tell me you don't remember. We might have to repeat the conversation. But that's another story. But you know, these are things that I want to share what I've learned, but I want to learn as well. And you know, I'm learning from Beck week by week the way that she's processing, and I love the research and all the interesting things that she brings. So we bless and encourage each other, and to become a community of women who know that it's about support and encouragement, but not just to get, but to give as well. It's reciprocated then.
That's true. I was going to say that to Lisa. Lisa, I know you said you don't have a tribe, but you know, I didn't either at one point when my life fell apart. And I call them God winks, when you meet people by coincidence, and all of a sudden you find one thing that maybe they went through the same kind of thing in some way or another. And as long as they're a positive person that can build you up and not bring you down, there's one more person in your tribe right there. And you grow with that person. And then when you meet other people, you're going to have those people that are going to just constantly bring you down as well. They want to continue to talk about the negative. And those are the people that you have to step outside the tribe. You know, they can be an acquaintance, but they can't be a part of it. But don't pass over on those people sometimes too, though, that you meet, because you've got to be willing to be open and open your heart to them and let them come inside your circle. And all of a sudden, 3 years ago, I didn't have anybody after I went through all of my things. And now I have my tribe. So, but it was not only because of me, but it was because I opened up and reached out and allowed those people in the positive people that I knew, Christian women that I wanted to associate with that weren't the ones bringing me down. So
Right.
you'll have one. You'll have one.
I believe so. I'm looking forward to it. You know.
Well, where you've landed in California right now, there's a pretty beautiful bunch of people that you're meeting, Lisa. So that's just so sweet. And I love what Beck said, that sometimes the people that are in our tribe or the people that we're walking with, the time finishes, that no longer is part of the process. And I'm getting a little bit better at this, but you know, during my life, there's been times where those paths have deviated, and it's been really painful. Haven't understood that maybe our time has ended as walking together with one another, you know, and whether it's moving away or a breakdown of relationship, you know, it's still not an easy process when you then have to I guess, accept that that's a shift and maybe that person isn't part of your life going forward. But I do have, and like Beck said, I've just experienced the same, that those beautiful women have been brought into my life. And it just seems like, you know, even more precious than before. It's like an additional gem that they bring with them that maybe I didn't have before from the people I was walking with. So it is a fluid kind of thing, isn't it? That if you feel like that's your tribe and you're just going to hold on for life and death to those people, that won't work so well either. You know, you've got to be willing to let people go, let other people maybe come in, and it's an ever growing, ever shifting place to manage.
Yeah.
We've had people in our group where with estranged daughters, where they've reconnected with their daughters and they're in a healthy relationship now. So now they have ventured out. They don't want to be a part of this group anymore. They've sent me messages, you know, emails personally, just saying they feel like they've moved on, and that's great. You know, cheer them on. And you know, we served a purpose, and that purpose is ended, and it's time to go on.
Right.
They may be back, but I hope not. I hope they continue on. But I'm going to have to get off of here, you guys. It's my bedtime. It is 9:45.
Whoa.
And yes, so as you were saying good morning, I need to say good night.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me, ladies. And
Thank you.
I'll send out, you know, I'll keep it in the Facebook group for opportunity for people, if it's just for sharing, for prayer, for whatever it needs to happen, heart encounters. I'm open to whatever happens week by week. Well, take care. Good sleep. Sleep well.
All right. Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
So
You too.
to go out. Nice to meet you. I was
Good night. Good luck.
Bye.
Good night.